What's going on, everybody? Perry up in the front this time, Eric in the back. We just got out of seeing a film called The Worst Person in the World, which is written and directed by Joachim Trier. I don't know how to pronounce his name, unfortunately. But apparently this guy is a distant relative of Lars von Trier, which is a really interesting fact because I really love Lars von Trier. We all really love Lars von Trier. But The Worst Person in the World is a film that's gotten a lot of praise, a lot of buzz. Surprisingly got more Academy Award nominations than I expected. So this is a film that a lot of people have been talking about, and for that reason, it just got released here in Atlanta, so I was really excited to see this film. And after watching the film, I gotta say, it was a pretty great film. I enjoyed it immensely. I gotta say, the first half of this film, I thought it was good, but I didn't find it that compelling. It wasn't until the second half of this film kicks in that I started to really connect with it. Found it a lot more compelling, and both just from its craft and the writing. Because the first half of this film, I was worried that when it comes to the main character, we weren't going to get that much character growth. But then I was proven wrong in the second half because I feel like the character is explored more, and not only is the character explored more, but it explores its themes quite well. And as I said, just found the second half a lot more compelling. I also really liked in terms of its structure, I liked that this film it kind of has an unconventional structure to it in terms of its narrative, because this film doesn't have the traditional beginning, middle, and end. There's not this noticeable climax in the film, and there's not this noticeable conclusion. It's just you really do feel throughout this film you are kind of following this woman's life, and really makes it feel a lot more real, makes it feel a lot more genuine, and I really appreciated that out of the film. And it's also divided into chapters. There's many different chapters in this film. I don't know if it's... Do y'all remember how many chapters there was?
It was 12 chapters, a prologue, 12 chapters, and then an epilogue.
Yeah, there's 12 chapters in this film. And again, I think that helped in terms of its unconventional structure. I found it quite interesting, and I also like how it basically cuts to black really quick before the start of a new chapter. And I also loved the score and soundtrack to this film. Not only just how it sounds, but I like the way it was integrated into the film. And I won't really say much more because I want to let everybody else talk. But I was quite impressed with this film, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. Perry, go ahead, buddy.
I really love this film. I am excited to see more from this director. I think the main actress, Renate Rensve, I think she did a fantastic job. I think all the acting is great across the board. And like you said, I really like the soundtrack and the score and how it was incorporated in the film. And what's interesting is we were talking about how the film's divided in chapters, but Lars von Trier does the same thing, and this is his distant relative, so I think it's funny that the film is structured that way as well. I mean, this film, it was a lot funnier than I was expecting it to be, because I didn't really know what to expect going into this film. I knew it was just going to be, kind of a I don't want to say slice of life, but I guess you could say slice of life, just following this character and, seeing how... how she grows, how she evolves as a person.
Kind of like a character drama.
Yeah, just a character drama. So it was a lot funnier than I was expecting. I don't think it was as funny as the audience we watched it with thought it was.
The audience was so obnoxious.
Oh, yeah.
Really obnoxious. It's like this is the first movie they've ever seen in their life.
Yeah.
They were laughing at everything in this movie, and it was just, I don't know. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but it was quite annoying. And there was one person in particular right in front of us that was literally laughing loud at everything. It was
he was even blowing raspberries. He was like,
yeah,
before he started laughing.
Somebody shit the film, he'd go. I was like,
even with like nothing really is happening.
yeah, it was quite a surprise and very annoying.
Shit that wasn't even supposed to be funny, they were laughing at. I'm like, what is wrong with you people?
I don't know. It's
don't
just
know.
Atlanta audiences, because clearly that's happened to us before.
Yeah, what's
Like,
crazy
it's
is our
weird.
worst theater experience was the Midsummer theater experience, and it was at this theater, but that was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It further extended my hatred towards audiences in general. I mean, sometimes you get a good audience. Most of the time in this theater, we get a pretty good audience.
Yeah.
So this one was a bit of a surprise, but you
Also,
know,
the turnout was more than what we usually get.
Oh yeah, there was not. Don't want to say it was packed, but it was pretty.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was-
for an
It
art
was- yeah.
for an art theater. It was pretty
Yeah.
filled up.
for like a foreign film that like you really have to know movies in order to know what it is. Like it was pretty packed.
Yeah, but not to stray too far away from the film. Like I said, I really loved it. What's interesting about this film is what it is like to me is it's basically a reflection of relationships nowadays, you know? Like basically what it's like to have a relationship in our time period, you know?
Yeah, I can
if
see
I
that.
had to kind of sum it up. It also, I think it's really going to resonate with people our age, you know, like in our 20s, where we're kind of not sure what we want and, you know, want to do with their lives, because the character is very ambivalent. It's like she doesn't know what she wants until it's like she doesn't know what she wants. She only knows what she doesn't want, you know?
Yeah, because it's like in our age, like I mean, life has become more complicated, not only for men but especially for women, because you know before, like they weren't expected to have a career. They didn't have nearly as much freedom in a way, so it's become more complicated to where, you know, especially for women, like you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't, because you know, if you just want to be a housewife or something, or if you want to just stay at home and do your own thing, like society and people kind of in a way look down on you, and they expect so much out of you in terms of your goals in your life and what you want to do as a career. You know, there's so much judgment from pretty much everybody, and it's almost like, you know, women are expected to have you know bigger aspirations even if they don't want to. And I think that was a theme that was demonstrated really well in this film, to where I could actually feel, you know, the frustration from the main character. Because again, like just everybody in society just they expect a lot more out of women now, even if you know, they don't necessarily want what they want.
Right.
But yeah.
Also, I like how the film didn't have to spell it out for her, but I feel like it was kind of implied that like her relationship with her father like influenced her relationship with, you know, the men around her and the men in her life.
Yeah.
But I like how that wasn't like spoon fed to us. Like it was just like one scene, boom, got it. That's all I needed.
Yeah.
But we both talked enough.
Yeah.
Eric, this is your second time watching this film. How do you feel upon rewatch?
Yeah, so this is my second time, and upon a second rewatch, I only love this movie more. I found it more humorous, and seeing it at the big screen, I love the cinematography even more. Little just things that I picked up that I just appreciated further. My favorite thing about this movie is the central performance from the main character. I find her to be a really rich and very layered character that's just really watchable. You really understand what she's going through. She's just really relatable in a way, not in every way, because obviously the decisions she makes in the movie are not, you know, they're not it kind of goes into the title, they're not the decisions you don't even know if it's right, and she doesn't know either. I like that about the movie, that she, like Perry touched upon, she doesn't really know what she wants. It just makes her what I find to be an interesting character, and the movie really just fires on all cylinders for me. It doesn't have like the most top-notch like cinematography or anything, but every piece of filmmaking in this movie, to me at least, is really solid. I really love the writing, the score, the pacing. Everybody's acting is really believable, and really I just think this movie is just very authentic It's not overly dramatic or
Yeah.
overly overstated. It's just, it feels like the director had something he wanted to say, and he just made a really great movie just conveying the themes that he wanted to explore, which I feel this movie is, yeah, it is definitely about relationships, but it's also about life and being uncertain with yourself, and being comfortable in your own skin, and not having to make everything so concrete, if that makes sense. It's just
Yeah, I could
kind
definitely
of
see
just
that.
find yourself, and it's okay to like question yourself and just go with what your heart desires, even if there's unforeseen consequences laying ahead. But anyways, that is my like how I view the movie. I really love this movie.
Yeah, because the main character in this film, like, again, like I guess like in the first half, I found her character quite frustrating, but it's supposed to, because in the film, after all, it is called The Worst Person in the World, but like it's just that she has this tendency to have these phases. She's constantly on this search of trying to find something that's permanent. She's really interested in a lot of different things, but isn't really passionate enough to fully commit herself to something. And it isn't until she finds her first real love that she feels like, okay, I'm gonna commit to this. But and I'm not really spoiling anything, because if you watch the trailers, it's basically in here, but it shows you that even then, when she truly feels like she found someone that that she loves deeply and wants to spend the rest of her life with, she just can't help but feel like there's something missing within her. And that's kind of like a recurring thing with her character for a while, is that she can never really find something in this film that is consistent, that is making her feel whole. And I like that in the second half of this film, she has different experiences that kind of allow her to grow and allow her to move in a way that makes her see her past wrongdoings and her past regrets in a way that she can then learn from and act accordingly. And so the second half of this film I found quite compelling for a lot of those reasons. But there's this one scene in particular in the second half of this film, and it's basically like a shroom trip scene. And I really loved that scene because in terms of its visuals, the visual portrayal was dead on, at least for a portion of it. I was waiting to see how they would go about this kind of scene with the shroom trip, and I was like, in terms of the visuals, they really got it. But not only the visuals, in terms of the whole psychological experience of what one feels during a shroom trip, I thought was captured really well, because when you're on this drug, it's like you are not only having this really existential feeling, but at the same time you're having to face past traumas and facing things that you're kind of burying on the inside in this really psychedelic way. But I love the way that this film portrayed that scene in particular. And overall, the second half of this movie, in terms of the craft, in terms of the writing, in terms of the character growth, and even the acting, I thought was as Eric said, firing on all cylinders. It was really great stuff.
Yeah, really. I don't see a particular aspect about this movie that's really lacking in any way. I think this movie delivers really well on all aspects of filmmaking, like I said.
Well, what's interesting is everyone talks about the main performance. Also, the cartoonist really stuck out to me. I loved his character.
Absolutely.
And what's funny is his cartoons, they were controversial. A lot of feminists were saying they were sexist and whatnot, which I think is interesting, because I actually think that's inspired by Robert Crumb, the famous.
Yeah, I was thinking of Robert.
Parallels.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting, but it's not he's not exactly like Robert Crumb. It's not like they just copied and pasted Robert Crumb's personality from watching that documentary. It's they use Robert Crumb as an inspiration, but they created a really nuanced, three-dimensional character. And the monologues that he gives in this film, it really resonated with me, and I found it incredibly profound, and it really made me think of my love for cinema and my obsession with collecting Criterion, and how I'm gonna look back on that, when I get older and I have to face death. You know?
Yeah, that was a really compelling monologue. And what I really like about the cartoonist character as well is that, like, overall, I would characterize, honestly, like, this film as a kind of feminist piece in a way.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's really interesting because the cartoonist character represents the kind of, like, opposition to that in a way. Well, not opposition to feminism, but, like, opposition to the kind of, like, hypersensitive, like, new wave feminism that, is, like, taught in schools and stuff. Because his cartoons are very controversial. There's no boundaries to them in the same way that you would see, like, in a Robert Crumb comic. And I like that this film was able to have a character like that, while at the same time, like, not demonizing him in pretty much any way, and still having like a compelling feminist piece.
Yeah, it's crazy because, like, even though his cartoons were described as hateful towards women and misogynistic and whatnot, it's like he himself as a character wasn't like that at all. He's not what the media made him out to be.
Plus, he basically had a wife that was very pro-woman too, and she basically didn't have a problem with it at all. So, and
it does play into, like, that separate the art from the artist, and the art doesn't always reflect of the person creating it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to distinguish those things. And I thought there is a scene in particular that raises kind of an interesting conversation, and it really feels like that's something you would see or something you would hear in today's world.
Absolutely.
It's like the writer of the film, like, really understood, like, our time and, like, all of the problems going on now, and how not just one person but couples have to deal with those everyday problems and those everyday pressure, pushing them in a certain direction and maybe even having some effect on their relationship.
Yeah, and it didn't feel like cartoony or ham-fisted either, which was a nice switch up. 'Cause usually when you get stuff like that in films, when you have certain, like,
it's so heavy-handed.
Yeah, like political portrayals of characters and stuff like that, it could become like, it could be like a real eye roll.
Yeah.
But here it was handled in a way that felt like the way you would see it, like, in real life.
Yeah.
Which was good.
This film felt very modern, but in a way that didn't feel overly cartoony. Like show you how much we've come as a society. I don't know. Just it felt very natural. It felt very natural to take place in this time and also tell something that at least I feel is pretty original.
I completely agree. There is a scene I probably would say it's my favorite scene in the film, and I feel like it's the scene everyone's going to be talking about when they watch the film.
Is it the scene in the poster?
Yes, it's the scene in the poster.
I love that scene.
It's like that is such a perfect scene, like, out of all the 2021 films, because technically this is a 2021 film. That's probably one of my favorite scenes that I've seen in any film from the past year. It was phenomenal, just perfect. And
I'm with you.
I think that was the turning point for me, because up until then I liked the film, but when that scene happened, I'm like, I am so on board with this. I fucking love this film right now.
It's pure visual storytelling, and it's such a beautiful use of like metaphors and just thinking about what the character is like experiencing. Like, I love it.
Yeah, I'm on board with what both of y'all said, but more so with what Perry just said, which is that I liked the movie and everything, but I wasn't really crazy about it. And then, like, once that scene happens, I was like, okay, that was like the first truly compelling scene in the film, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think when you go through it a second time, you all know where it leads to. So even the stuff in, like, the first act, you kind of get the character more. You understand where she's coming from, and like, kind of more appreciate her arc in the movie.
Yeah, that seems to be the case with, like, a lot of films, because when you watch a film the first time, you don't really know where it's going, so you're still just kind of, like, riding with things. and you're just kind of waiting to see where the story goes and everything. But like on rewatch, you can feel more comfortable knowing where everything goes and just appreciate, the more finer details of a film better.
Exactly. That's how I felt watching it a second time.
And what's funny is that people coming out of our audience, they complained about the pacing and said it was really slow. The pacing didn't really bother me.
It wasn't slow. Like the movie moves at a pretty brisk pace. The only slower scenes that I can think of are like the monologue scenes, like he was talking about with like the cartoonist. But
that's some of the best scenes in the film. Yeah,
incredibly purposeful.
It's some of the best stuff in the film.
I don't know, like, I definitely wouldn't say that the film dragged overall. I honestly don't even like using the word dragged, specifically when it comes to this film. But I do feel like it was just like a tiny bit too long, just like a tiny bit. Like there was like a moment like in the third act where
you could have ended it there.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of kept going.
Yeah, that, and also like again maybe with some scenes, even though I liked certain scenes that happened in the third act, it got to a point where I was like, okay, do we need to keep this scene overall going?
Yeah.
Can we like end this and move on to the next thing? But overall, like it's more of a nitpick. I feel like overall this film is paced incredibly well.
Yeah, I would say if there's one thing that bothered me is some of the comedy didn't work for me. I'd say like maybe 80% of the comedy worked for me, but there was some stuff in the film I'm like, please just move on. Like move away from this scene. It's not working for me. I mean, it was only like one or two scenes in the film, but it was just I get it was supposed to be like quirky and feel very, relatable and human and whatnot. But for me, it just felt very awkward, and I just couldn't get immersed in those particular scenes. And I feel like when you watch the film, you'll know what I'm talking about. I'm sure y'all in the car know what I'm talking about now.
I disagree. I pretty much like all the comedy. Once again, it's not bust out laughing. It's not really meant to be that, but there wasn't really a time where I think like, okay, this is just like kind of unbelievable or kind of cringe or whatever.
Like
I wouldn't go as far as to say cringe, because I feel like that's such an overused word. It's just like it was kind of like some of the comedy just was lost on me. It was a flat line. It just did not work for me. But it was only 80%. Like 80% of the comedy worked for me. It was only about like 20% where I just couldn't get on board with.
Yeah, it's funny because like, I wouldn't say like, I mean, there were some attempts at comedy that didn't quite land for me, but honestly I'm not even bothered by it, because like all the comedy in this film is not going for like a punchline, in my opinion.
It's not
I
like
get
the
it.
scene stops like a Marvel movie and we have to tell a joke.
No, it's like I get it wasn't going for like bust, like you said, bust out laughter or anything. It's just like I said, it's like I get what the film is doing. But it's just
it didn't work. Yeah,
it just did not resonate with me. It just didn't work.
And I think that's fair. It just didn't bother me as much because like, it's worse when a film is like, trying to go for like an actual laugh, and you're just like, oh, like it just doesn't land. Here I don't feel like it was really going for like a laugh. It was just like something that was like kind of slightly comedic. You can laugh at it if you want. If not, that's also okay too. It's kind of what I felt like.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not like a huge issue I have with the film. It's just something I wanted to point out.
I think that's fair.
Because, like Eric said, it's not like a Marvel movie where let's stop so we can insert this joke.
Cheesy one-liner bullshit.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to say about the film before we give our ratings is that I really loved, I think it was chapter 3, but it was the chapter where it's titled Cheating.
That's chapter 3.
Yes.
Chapter 3. I really liked that chapter, and I think it's because it brings up a really interesting conversation about where you draw the line, and that's where it's, and I mean they even, it's not subtle. I mean there's a character that even raises that question like through their dialogue. But either way, I think even though it's obvious about what it's doing, it does demonstrate its point incredibly well. Because like as I was watching that scene after it was all over, I don't want to spoil anything, but I'll just say that there's no cheating in the traditional sense that happens. But after the scene was over, I was like, why am I more offended and more hurt by what happened there than like an actual act of cheating?
Yeah. I can see what you're saying.
Because it feels more intimate and it feels more personal.
I'm completely 100% with you. That is exactly what I get out of that scene. That's just a really great scene. It's very thought provoking for you to reflect on like that kind of relationship stuff.
Yeah, and it was, again, it's a scene that demonstrates his point incredibly well, and one of probably my second or third favorite scene in the movie, probably second favorite scene, but...
That shot with the smoke inhalation, it's in the trailer, where one person is blowing smoke, and, I love that shot.
And I was worried about it, because, like, in the trailer, it just seemed like, like surface-level edge core or something like that, but then, like, when you watch it, there's, like, there's a lot of, like, substance, like, behind it.
Because how many films have you seen that where they do the slow
exactly.
blowing? But like Carlos said, it was actually very purposeful, and I liked the way it was incorporated in the film.
Yeah, I just want to touch on one last thing too. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead.
I disagree when it comes to like that this movie has scenes that drag on for too long. I don't personally feel that way. Because there's a lot of scenes with the main character kind of like just shots of her like looking in one direction, or her like walking around this kind of like scenery. I really like those scenes. It's kind of reminiscent to me, at least, of like the piano teacher, where the main character, you just kind of have to read, you just kind of have to sit there as an audience member and just kind of like interpret her facial expression and kind of like think about what she's thinking. And there's no real like spoon feeding out. You kind of figure the conclusions in her head and where she's coming from, and use that to like enhance your experience. That's what I get out of it. I just
fair
wanted
enough.
to touch on that.
There's one really bad, like the editing overall was really solid, but there was one really awkward cut in the movie where a character is hunched over like this and face down towards a sink. Literally it cuts, and the next shot he's like standing straight up. It's like, what? Like, it was just like a hard cut. He had his face turned down towards the sink, and then all of a sudden he's looking at the character. I'm like, that's not that.
There was a few like jarring cuts in this film.
That's the one that really stuck out to me.
But I didn't know if like it was like intentional, because Von Trier does that shit all the time. Like, where.
But I feel like it's more intentional when Von Trier does it.
That's fair enough. I just didn't know. I was like, all right, is it style? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say another thing is like I like a lot that this movie incorporates really kind of two styles of like shooting, because there are definitely there's definitely like really well framed, really interesting like shots, and then there's a lot of scenes where it's obviously like kind of shaky,
handheld,
and more handheld, and I like that. And sure, I mean, you could, I think Lars has definitely utilized that kind of stuff more purposeful, but I still enjoy that aspect.
It's still effective.
Of this
Antichrist
movie.
Definitely comes to mind.
Definitely Antichrist, but I even think of like like Dancer in the Dark.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
All right, let's give ratings, guys. Let's do it. All right, so obviously I really enjoyed this film. The second half I found quite compelling, and probably on rewatch I'll probably enjoy the first half even more than I did the first time. I'll give The Worst Person in the World right now a soft 8 out of 10.
Okay.
All right, Perry. Does Perry go last?
Goes.
Okay. Eric's next then.
Only on my second rewatch I enjoyed it even more. I'm gonna give it a strong 8 out of 10.
Hey, I'm actually right there with you, Eric. I'm gonna give this a rock hard, very strong
for real.
8 out of 10.
Super strong 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Big veiny triumphant 8.
Want to give it that 9, but it's okay. I'm just gonna say 8 out of 10.
I feel very comfortable
Me too.
with that very strong 8.
Yeah.
Well, technically we all gave it an 8.
Yeah.
So technically we're all like on the same page. So.
Yeah.
I'm really glad to hear that. I was worried that like you guys might watch it and think it's underwhelming.
I was worried that Carlos was gonna like it, like just not like it at all, and I'm like, oh fuck. I mean, and Eric are gonna be singing its praises.
Yeah, I was worried about.
I told y'all when I was like a little bit skeptical just from the trailer, because even though everybody loved it, a lot of times I'm like, well, the trailer didn't really speak to me at all, but. I came out really enjoying it.
You could see the trailer and be like, "Oh, this is just Girl Boss the movie," but it's like it's not. I've seen the movie, and every time I see the trailer, I'm just like, that's not what the movie is. It's really like layered and deep, and yeah.
Trailers are so misguiding though, because you can have a very like well edited trailer, and then the movie be a piece of crap,
that's true.
And then vice versa, like the trailer just not hook you, and then the movie be surprisingly very good.
But all right, guys, that's all we had to say about The Worst Person in the World. Don't forget to check out our Drive My Car review if you haven't checked that out yet. We reviewed that last week, right?
Last week.
Friday. Yeah.
Yep.
Not even a week.
Nope. So go check that out if you haven't already. And that's it. If you really enjoyed what I had to say about the film, just give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content. Jeez.